"It hurts, but I want more," she whispered. He said, "Sweetheart, you're stronger than a Mustang." She had always been known for her quiet strength. To people who only knew her in passing, she might have seemed ordinary, someone who blended into the background. But anyone who spent even a little time with her could see the fire beneath her calm exterior. Life had never been easy for her. From a young age, she learned that things wouldn't come to her without effort. Her family depended on her in small ways that she sometimes barely noticed, helping her siblings with homework, supporting her parents when they struggled, or keeping the household running smoothly when everyone else was too tired to notice what needed to be done. She grew up understanding that strength wasn't about being loud or noticeable. It was about quietly handling what life threw at you, no matter how heavy it felt. Even as she grew older, this quiet determination didn't leave her. She held down a demanding job while also making time for her family and friends. Her days were long, often starting before the sun rose and ending after it had gone down. By the time she returned home, her body ached and her mind was exhausted, yet somehow she still found the energy to smile and listen when someone needed her. She had mastered the art of keeping her struggles to herself, not because she wanted to, but because she didn't want to burden anyone else. To her, taking care of herself always came second, and helping others first. Her friends often told her she needed to slow down, to take time for herself, but she always laughed it off. "I'm fine," she would say. But inside, she knew the truth. Her body sometimes complained, reminding her of the hours she had spent running from one task to another. Her muscles often ached, and she felt a constant tiredness in her bones that sleep alone could not fix. She was aware of it, but she refused to give in. This wasn't weakness, it was perseverance. She had survived too many hardships to give up now, and she wasn't about to start. Despite her exhaustion, she had goals, dreams that she kept close to her heart. They weren't big or flashy dreams, the kind that would make headlines. They were personal, simple goals, yet achieving them required courage and determination. Every day she worked on herself, pushing past the limits her body and mind seemed to set. Sometimes she felt frustrated, thinking she wasn't making enough progress, but she reminded herself that growth was not instant. Every small step mattered. She had learned over the years that life wasn't a race. It was a series of challenges, and overcoming them, no matter how slowly, was what made a person truly strong. People admired her resilience, even if they didn't always say it out loud. Her coworkers noticed how she handled stress without losing her composure. Her friends saw how she was always willing to lend a helping hand, no matter what she was going through. And her family relied on her presence, her steady support. She became the anchor that held others steady when life got rough. But no one saw the moments when she felt overwhelmed, when she questioned if she could keep going. Those moments she carried in silence, tucked deep inside, hidden behind a brave smile and a calm voice. Only she knew how much effort it took to keep moving forward, day after day. Even in her quiet moments, there was a determination that could not be broken. She would wake up early, not because she had to, but because she wanted to seize the day, to make sure nothing slipped through her fingers. Her mornings were filled with small rituals that grounded her. A cup of tea, a few minutes of stretching, a quiet walk before the chaos began. These small routines gave her strength, reminding her that she was capable of facing whatever the day might bring. She had learned that strength was built not in moments of comfort, but in the small choices made consistently, the choices to keep going even when it hurt, even when no one was watching. Over the years, she had faced challenges that could have broken a lesser person. She had experienced disappointments, setbacks, and losses that left a mark on her heart. Yet she refused to be defined by them. Instead, she used every difficulty as a lesson, as a stepping stone toward becoming stronger. She learned to listen to her own needs, even if quietly, and to respect her limits without allowing them to stop her. And as she grew stronger, she realized that her resilience was not just about surviving. It was about living fully, embracing life even when it was painful or unpredictable. Her friends often told her that she inspired them, though she rarely believed it. She thought of herself as just doing what needed to be done, taking each day as it came. But others saw her courage, her ability to face life head-on, and it left an impression. They saw someone who didn't give up, who kept trying no matter how difficult things became. They saw a person who carried her burdens quietly, yet still found the strength to lift others. She didn't see herself as remarkable, but to those around her she was a symbol of quiet determination and hope. Even in the most ordinary moments, her strength shone through. It wasn't about grand gestures or dramatic achievements. It was in the way she got up each morning, the way she smiled through exhaustion, the way she continued to push herself despite the pain she sometimes felt in her body and mind. Life had shaped her into someone who could handle anything, someone who had learned the value of patience, perseverance, and inner strength. And yet, she was still human. She had moments of doubt, moments when the weight of her responsibilities felt too heavy, but she faced them, not with despair, but with a quiet courage that had become a part of who she was. In those moments of reflection, she sometimes wondered how much of her strength came from necessity, and how much from her own inner desire to be better, to do more, to live fully. She understood that life would continue to challenge her, to test her limits, but she also knew that she was ready. Ready not because she had no fears, but because she had faced fear before and had learned that it could be overcome. Ready not because life would be easy, but because she had already proven to herself that she could endure. Her strength wasn't just in her muscles or her endurance. It was in her heart, in her mind, and in her unwavering determination to keep moving. Even on days when the world seemed overwhelming, she found moments of peace and reflection. She would take a deep breath, feel the rhythm of her own heartbeat, and remind herself that she was capable of handling whatever came next. These small acts of self-awareness and self-compassion were what sustained her, what allowed her to face each day with courage. And in these moments, she realized something important. Her quiet strength was not just about surviving. It was about thriving, about embracing life in all its complexity, about finding the power to continue, even when it was hard. And so, she continued, day after day, carrying the weight of her responsibilities with grace and determination. She faced each challenge with courage, each setback with patience, and each success with humility. Life had taught her that strength was not about perfection or invincibility. It was about resilience, about rising every time you fell, about pushing forward even when it hurt. And she had learned, slowly and quietly, that she was capable of far more than she had ever imagined. She had always known life could be painful, but nothing truly prepared her for the kind of struggle that reached deep inside, testing not just her body, but her spirit. On that day, everything felt different. She could feel the weight of each moment pressing down on her, a sensation she had never experienced before. Her muscles ached in ways that were unfamiliar. Her heart raced, and a strange mixture of fear and determination filled her mind. She had faced challenges before, but this one demanded more than she had ever given. Every breath felt heavy, every step seemed longer than the last, and still she refused to stop. At first, she tried to push the pain aside, convincing herself it was just temporary, that it would pass if she could focus hard enough. She told herself stories of the challenges she had overcome in the past, reminding herself that she was strong and capable. Yet, as time went on, the pain didn't lessen. It grew sharper, more insistent, and the doubts that had been buried deep inside began to creep back. Can I really do this? She wondered. For a moment she allowed herself to imagine giving up, to imagine stepping back and letting someone else take over. But then, almost immediately, she shook the thought away. Giving up had never been an option. Not for her. There was a quiet voice inside her, a voice she had learned to trust over the years. It told her to breathe, to slow down, to focus on one small step at a time. She closed her eyes for a brief second, feeling the rhythm of her own heartbeat, and reminded herself that pain was only temporary. It was not a signal to stop. It was a signal to keep going, to push further than she thought possible. And so, with careful, deliberate movements, she continued, even as her body screamed in protest. She had always believed in herself, but now, more than ever, she realized that believing was not enough. She had to act, to endure, and to fight through every moment that felt impossible. Her mind wandered during the struggle, thinking of the people she cared about, the family who depended on her, the friends who relied on her laughter and support. She imagined them cheering her on silently, believing in her even when she doubted herself. It was this thought, this small connection to others, that gave her the strength to keep moving. She realized that she was not just enduring this for herself. She was enduring it for everyone who had ever counted on her, for everyone who saw her as strong, and for herself, who had always wanted to prove that she could rise above anything life put in front of her. Time seemed to stretch endlessly. Each second felt like a minute, each minute like an hour. The pain, relentless and unyielding, was a constant reminder that this was not going to be easy. Her body shook with exhaustion, but her mind refused to surrender. She had faced so many moments like this before, but this one felt different. It was not just a test of endurance, it was a test of her spirit, of her ability to remain focused and determined when everything inside her wanted to collapse. She realized that growth and transformation often came through such moments, that real strength was forged in the fire of difficulty, not in comfort or ease. As the struggle continued, she became more aware of her own resilience. She remembered the lessons she had learned over the years, the importance of patience, of persistence, of listening to herself, while also pushing herself beyond perceived limits. She recalled times when life had tested her in ways that seemed unbearable, and how each time she had emerged stronger than before. Now, in this moment, those memories served as a quiet encouragement. She understood that suffering did not mean weakness. It meant opportunity. Opportunity to discover a deeper layer of strength she had never known existed, to realize that she was capable of far more than she had imagined. Even though the pain was intense, there were moments of clarity, moments when she felt an almost strange peace. In the midst of struggle, she noticed small details, the warmth of sunlight on her skin, the faint sound of wind moving through the trees, the steady beat of her own heart. These tiny reminders of life itself grounded her, giving her a sense of connection to something larger than herself. She realized that life was not just about enduring pain. It was about noticing the beauty in it, about finding small moments of joy and wonder even in the hardest times. It was this balance that allowed her to continue, to move forward despite every challenge that confronted her. Somewhere along the way, she felt a presence beside her. Not a literal person, but a sense of support so strong it was almost tangible. She imagined a voice, calm and steady, telling her she was stronger than she realized. "You can do this," she heard, and though it was just a thought, it resonated deep within her. She thought about the people who had encouraged her in the past, who had believed in her when she struggled to believe in herself. The imagined voice became a companion, a quiet cheer that reminded her she was not alone, that she had the capacity to overcome even the most difficult moments. The longer she continued, the more she noticed a subtle transformation. The fear that had first gripped her began to fade, replaced by a strange sense of determination and purpose. She felt her body responding slowly but surely to her mind's insistence that she keep going. Every movement, every step, every breath was a victory in itself, and with each small victory, her confidence grew. She realized that pain was not an enemy but a teacher. It taught her patience, focus, endurance, and self-awareness. It taught her that she could rely on herself, that she could face even the hardest moments and emerge stronger on the other side. By the end of that long day, she was exhausted in every sense of the word. Her body ached, her muscles were heavy, and yet she felt a quiet sense of pride that no words could fully capture. She had faced a challenge that seemed impossible at first, and she had endured. She had pushed past pain, doubt, and fear, and discovered a deeper part of herself she had not known existed. She understood now that pain was not a signal to stop, but a guide, showing her where growth and transformation awaited. And in that realization, she felt an unshakable strength that would stay with her long after the moment had passed. Even in her quiet moments after the struggle, she reflected on what she had learned. She thought about how life often tested people in ways that were unpredictable, how every struggle carried within it an opportunity to grow. She understood that true strength was not just about what one could endure physically, but about resilience of the heart and mind. It was about continuing even when everything felt impossible, about trusting oneself even in moments of doubt, about discovering courage that had been hidden deep within. And in her heart, she knew she had found that courage. The pain that had seemed so overwhelming at first had become a teacher, a reminder of what she was capable of. She realized that every difficulty she had faced in the past, every struggle she had endured, had prepared her for this moment. And though she knew that life would continue to challenge her, she also knew that she had the inner strength to face whatever came next. She had learned that even in the darkest moments, there was light to be found, strength to be discovered, and hope to be nurtured. She closed her eyes and allowed herself a quiet smile. She had endured the pain, and in doing so, she had discovered a deeper part of herself. She had faced doubt and fear, but had chosen to keep going. She had found resilience, courage, and an inner strength that could not be shaken. And in that moment, she understood something important. The challenges we face in life are not meant to break us. They are meant to show us how strong we really are. Even as she pushed herself forward, the struggle wasn't just physical. It was emotional, too. She felt a storm inside her, a mixture of fear, determination, and doubt. Each step she took seemed heavier than the last, and each movement reminded her of her limits. For a brief moment she thought about stopping, about letting herself give in, but the thought quickly passed. She had always known that growth came from discomfort, and this discomfort was deeper than any she had ever felt. She reminded herself that real strength wasn't about avoiding pain. It was about facing it head-on, even when every part of her body and mind screamed to quit. As she continued, she began to notice subtle changes in her surroundings and in herself. The world around her seemed sharper, more alive, as if the challenge had heightened her senses. She noticed the small details she would have overlooked in ordinary moments, the way sunlight danced through leaves, the sound of a bird calling in the distance, the rhythm of her own breathing. These small observations grounded her, giving her a sense of control in the middle of chaos. She realized that paying attention to the present moment, even in difficulty, was one of the keys to enduring it. It reminded her that life was still beautiful, even when it demanded the most from her. Somewhere along the way, she felt a presence, steady and reassuring, as if someone was silently cheering her on. It was not just a thought, but a deep awareness that she was not alone. She imagined the voice of someone who had always believed in her, a voice calm and unwavering, telling her she was stronger than she realized. "You are stronger than you think," the voice seemed to say. And in that imagined encouragement, she felt a surge of energy, a renewed determination to keep going. She understood that support didn't always have to be spoken. It could be felt, internalized, and carried as a source of strength in moments of struggle. The harder the challenge became, the more she realized how much her mind influenced her body. Her muscles ached, her chest felt tight, and her energy seemed to dwindle. But she refused to let her thoughts convince her that she was weak. She reminded herself of everything she had overcome before: long nights of work, personal disappointments, moments of uncertainty, and how each time she had emerged stronger than before. That memory of past victories became a shield against the fear trying to creep back in. She understood now that resilience was not just physical endurance. It was a mental commitment to persevere, to trust oneself even when circumstances were overwhelming. As the struggle deepened, she discovered a rhythm within herself. Each movement, each breath became part of a pattern, a silent cadence that kept her moving forward. Pain was still present, sharp and demanding, but it no longer dominated her thoughts. Instead, she began to focus on the act of continuing, one small step at a time. She learned to break the challenge into smaller parts, conquering each piece rather than being overwhelmed by the whole. It was a lesson she had learned in other areas of life as well, that enormous tasks could be accomplished by focusing on small, consistent efforts, and that victory often came in increments rather than all at once. Her mind wandered to the people who had influenced her life, people who had shaped her understanding of strength. She thought of friends who had supported her silently, family members who had sacrificed for her, and even strangers who had shown kindness in moments she hadn't expected. Each memory served as motivation, reminding her that she was part of a larger story, a story that mattered to others as well as herself. She realized that her determination was not just for her own benefit. It was also a reflection of the trust and love others had placed in her. That thought alone strengthened her resolve. The struggle, intense as it was, began to reveal something unexpected. Along with the exhaustion and pain, she felt moments of clarity and insight. She understood that life's challenges were not punishments, but opportunities to discover who she truly was. Each difficult moment peeled back layers of doubt, fear, and insecurity, revealing a core of resilience and courage that had always been within her. It was a humbling and empowering realization that she had the capacity to endure far more than she had imagined, and that the struggle itself was shaping her into a stronger, wiser person. She also noticed how much her perception of herself was changing. In the past, she had sometimes questioned her worth, her abilities, and her limits. But now, as she continued to face the challenge, she began to see herself differently. She saw herself as capable, determined, and courageous. She saw someone who could rise above fear, who could endure pain without losing hope, and who could find inner strength even in the most difficult circumstances. That awareness was a revelation, and it fueled her forward with renewed determination. Her body continued to protest, but she learned to listen without surrendering. She discovered a delicate balance between acknowledging the pain and refusing to be defined by it. She adjusted her movements, focused on her breathing, and reminded herself that discomfort was temporary, but the lessons she learned from it would last a lifetime. Each time she felt doubt creeping in, She countered it with the memory of how far she had already come. Each step forward was proof of her resilience, and each victory, no matter how small, reinforced her belief in herself. Even as exhaustion threatened to overtake her, she found moments of gratitude. She thought about the journey that had brought her to this point, the struggles she had endured, the lessons she had learned, and the people who had supported her along the way. Gratitude became a source of strength, a reminder that life was not just about suffering, but also about growth, connection, and the small joys that made enduring hardships worthwhile. With each thought of appreciation, she felt her spirit lift, and her resolve to continue became stronger. As she neared the most difficult part of the struggle, she felt an almost overwhelming mixture of fear and determination. She knew that this was the moment where her inner strength would be tested more than ever. But instead of succumbing to fear, she embraced it as a sign that she was alive, that she was pushing beyond her comfort zone, and that she was capable of achieving more than she had imagined. She understood that the greatest growth often came from moments that felt unbearable, and she was ready to meet the challenge head-on. Somewhere deep inside, a quiet voice reminded her that pain was not the enemy, but a companion guiding her toward strength. She repeated these words silently to herself, letting them become a mantra that carried her forward. She imagined the presence of someone who believed in her without question, whose faith in her ability gave her courage. That imagined support was enough to steady her, enough to help her push through the moments when doubt threatened to take over. She realized that strength was not just about enduring alone, but also about accepting support, even when it came in the form of an imagined voice, a thought, or a memory. By the end of the day, she felt an incredible mixture of relief, pride, and awe at her own resilience. She had faced a challenge that seemed impossible at the beginning, and she had endured. She had pushed through fear, pain, and doubt, and in doing so, discovered a deeper part of herself. She had learned that strength was not the absence of difficulty, but the ability to continue despite it. And as she reflected on the journey, she knew that this experience would stay with her forever, shaping the way she approached life, challenges, and herself. She understood that struggles like these were not isolated moments, but part of a larger journey. Life would continue to test her in ways both expected and unexpected. But now she had proof that she could meet those challenges with courage, determination, and grace. She had learned to trust herself, to trust her body, and to trust her mind. And in that trust, she found a sense of freedom, a sense of empowerment, and a sense of unshakable strength that could carry her through whatever came next. As she closed her eyes that night, she felt a deep sense of peace. She had endured pain, faced fear, and discovered courage. She had learned lessons that no book or teacher could have provided, lessons that came only from experience and perseverance. And in that quiet moment, she realized something extraordinary. True strength was not measured by what others saw, but by what one could endure, embrace, and rise above. She had faced her own limits and discovered that they were far beyond what she had imagined. The challenge had reached its peak. Every fiber of her being screamed for her to stop. Every step, every movement, every breath was a battle. Her muscles burned, her chest ached, and exhaustion weighed down her body like a heavy cloak. Yet despite the physical pain, her mind refused to surrender. She knew that giving up was not an option, not because anyone was watching her, but because she had spent her whole life learning that true strength comes from continuing, even when it seems impossible. She had faced challenges before, but this one was different. It demanded every ounce of her courage, determination, and patience. At first, she tried to focus solely on her body, trying to push through the pain with sheer willpower. But the more she struggled, the more she realized that her body alone was not enough. She needed her mind, her spirit, and her heart to work together. She had to dig deep, beyond the surface of strength she had always known, into a place she had rarely visited, the place where fear and hope coexist, where determination and doubt battle constantly, and where courage is forged in moments of complete vulnerability. She understood now that the test was not just physical, it was a test of her very being. As she continued, there were moments when she felt completely overwhelmed. She could hardly take a step without feeling pain radiate through her muscles. Her mind raced, questioning whether she had the strength to keep going. The desire to quit was almost unbearable. Yet, in those moments, she felt something else, a quiet voice inside her, the voice of experience, resilience, and self-belief. It reminded her of every struggle she had ever faced, every obstacle she had overcome, every time she had refused to let life defeat her. And in that quiet reminder, she found the courage to continue, even when it felt impossible. Somewhere along the way, she felt a presence beside her, not in the physical sense, but in the way of support, reassurance, and belief. It was a presence that reminded her she was never truly alone, even in the most difficult moments. She imagined someone she trusted whispering words of encouragement, a simple phrase that held the weight of love and faith. "You're stronger than a Mustang." The words struck her in a way nothing else could. They weren't grand or dramatic, but they carried a profound truth. She was strong, stronger than she had realized, stronger than the challenges in front of her. And with those words in her mind, she felt a renewed sense of determination, as though every step forward was guided by an invisible hand. The pain did not disappear, but it became bearable in a strange way. She had learned to accept it as part of the journey, part of the process of becoming stronger. Each ache, each twinge, each burn in her muscles was a sign that she was pushing her limits, that she was challenging herself in ways that would transform her. She understood that real growth could not occur without struggle, and that the moments that hurt the most often led to the greatest rewards. With this understanding, she pushed forward step by step, breath by breath, refusing to let the difficulty define her. As she pressed on, her mind drifted to memories of her past, both painful and joyful. She thought of the times she had faced failure and disappointment, and how she had survived them. She remembered moments of happiness, of love, and of connection that had reminded her of what life was truly about. These memories became a source of strength, a reminder that the present struggle, no matter how intense, was only a part of her story. She realized that life was not measured by the absence of difficulty, but by the courage to face challenges, by the persistence to continue despite setbacks, and by the willingness to grow through adversity. Her journey continued, each step heavier than the last, but also each step a testament to her resilience. She began to notice the subtle ways her body responded to her determination. Muscles that had burned moments ago seemed to adjust, as though her spirit was telling them to keep moving. Her breathing became more controlled, her focus sharper, her mind more aware of her capabilities. She understood that the struggle was teaching her more than just endurance. It was teaching her trust in herself, in her body, and in the strength she had always carried but sometimes doubted. At the most challenging moments, she allowed herself to pause, just for a second, to feel the weight of what she had already accomplished. Each tiny step forward was a victory. Each breath she took was a triumph. She realized that progress was not always visible from the outside, but it was undeniable in the effort, the persistence, and the courage to keep moving. She reminded herself that it was okay to feel tired, to acknowledge the difficulty, as long as she did not let it stop her. Strength, she understood, was not the absence of struggle. It was the choice to continue despite it. Time lost all meaning as she pushed through the climax of her struggle. Minutes stretched into hours in her perception, each one a test of endurance, patience, and determination. Her body screamed in protest, yet her mind remained focused on the goal, on the desire to rise above the challenge. She became aware of a rhythm within herself, a silent cadence that carried her forward. She matched her movements to her breathing, her thoughts to her steps, and found a sense of flow amid the chaos. It was in this flow that she discovered something remarkable, a sense of control over her body, her mind, and her spirit that she had never experienced before. She reflected on what had brought her to this point. Every challenge in her life had prepared her for this moment. Every obstacle she had overcome, every hardship she had endured, every time she had chosen perseverance over surrender, had led her to this exact experience. She realized that strength was cumulative, built over years of quiet endurance, small victories, and unwavering belief in herself. And now, in the midst of the greatest struggle she had faced yet, she could see the proof of her own resilience. The final stretch demanded everything from her. Pain, exhaustion, doubt, and fear were all present, yet so was determination, courage, and a deep sense of purpose. She focused not on the distance remaining, but on the moment before her, on the next step, the next breath, the next movement. She learned to break the challenge into manageable pieces, celebrating each small triumph as she went. With every step, she felt stronger, more confident, more capable of meeting whatever came next. She realized that victory was not a single moment, but a series of choices to continue, to endure, and to rise above. At the pinnacle of the struggle, she felt a transformation within herself. The fear that had threatened to overwhelm her had been replaced by confidence. The doubt that had crept into her mind had been silenced by proof of her own resilience. The pain that had seemed unbearable had become a symbol of her strength, a reminder that she could endure and grow through difficulty. She understood now that the most intense challenges were not meant to break her, but to reveal her true capabilities, to awaken a deeper, more powerful version of herself that had always existed, waiting to be discovered. Finally, as the moment of greatest challenge passed, she allowed herself to breathe fully, to feel the release of tension in her body. She had pushed through, endured, and discovered strength beyond what she had imagined. She realized that the struggle had taught her more about herself than any easy victory ever could. Strength was not just a physical ability. It was a combination of courage, determination, patience, and trust in oneself. And in that moment, she felt a sense of triumph that was not loud or showy, but quiet, profound, and deeply fulfilling. As the day ended, she reflected on the journey, on the lessons learned, and on the person she had become. She knew that life would continue to present challenges, that struggles would arise in ways she could not predict. But now she understood that she had the inner resources to meet them, to rise above them, and to grow through them. She had discovered that the greatest victories were not always visible, that true strength was often quiet, and that perseverance, courage, and belief in oneself could carry a person through even the toughest trials. And so, she moved forward, not unscathed, but transformed. She had faced the most difficult moment of her journey, endured it, and emerged stronger, wiser, and more confident. She knew that life would continue to test her, but she also knew that she could face whatever came next with courage, grace, and determination. She had learned that the limits she once thought existed were far beyond what she had imagined, and that true strength was found in persistence, resilience, and unwavering belief in oneself. After all that she had endured, she finally allowed herself a moment of stillness. The struggle, the fear, the pain, it had all passed, leaving her exhausted, yet filled with a sense of peace she had never known before. She closed her eyes and took a deep breath, feeling the weight of the journey she had just completed. Every ache in her body was a reminder of what she had overcome. Every throb a testimony to her perseverance. It had been more than a physical challenge. It had been a journey into herself, into the depths of her own resilience, courage, and determination. And now she realized that she had discovered a version of herself she could trust, a version that could face anything life placed in her path. She thought about the moments that had led to this point, remembering every small victory along the way, the early mornings when she forced herself to rise before the sun, the times she had pushed through exhaustion, the moments when her mind had whispered doubts and she had chosen to keep going. Each of these had prepared her for this final triumph. She understood now that life's greatest lessons often come not in moments of ease, but in moments of struggle. Every difficulty she had faced, every fear she had conquered, every tear she had shed, had shaped her into the strong, capable person she had become. Her mind wandered to the people who had supported her throughout her life, those who had believed in her when she struggled to believe in herself. She imagined their faces, their smiles, their quiet words of encouragement. Even if they had not been physically present during her most challenging moments, she felt their presence within her, a steady source of strength and reassurance. She realized that love and support often come in subtle ways, sometimes as memories, sometimes as encouragement spoken long ago, and sometimes as the faith of someone who simply believes in your ability to endure. It was in this understanding that she felt a deep sense of gratitude, not just for their support, but for the life experiences that had taught her resilience. As she reflected, she noticed a quiet shift within herself. The fear that had once dominated her thoughts had disappeared, replaced by confidence and clarity. She realized that she had faced the very limits she once feared, and had found them far beyond what she had imagined. She had discovered that strength was not just about enduring pain or completing a challenge. It was about growing through it, learning from it, and trusting herself in the process. She understood that life would continue to present obstacles, but she no longer feared them. Instead, she welcomed them as opportunities to demonstrate courage, perseverance, and inner strength. She thought about the voice that had guided her through the struggle, the imagined presence that had whispered words of encouragement. "You're stronger than a Mustang." Those words had carried her through moments of doubt, reminding her that she had the power to endure. Now she repeated them silently to herself, not because she needed encouragement, but because she understood their truth. She was strong, resilient, and capable. She had proven it to herself in ways that could never be taken away. And in that moment, she felt a sense of empowerment so profound that it touched every part of her being, her body, her mind, and her spirit. She reflected on the lessons she had learned throughout the journey. She had learned that pain and struggle were not signs of weakness, but opportunities for growth. She had discovered that true strength comes from perseverance, patience, and belief in oneself. She had realized that support, whether from others or from within, can guide a person through the most difficult moments. And she had understood that every challenge, no matter how intense, carries within it the potential to reveal courage, resilience, and inner power that might otherwise remain hidden. These lessons were not just for this moment. They were for every challenge she would face in the future. Even as her body rested, her mind remained active, replaying the journey in vivid detail. She remembered the moments when she had felt overwhelmed, the times when fear threatened to take over, and the points when her determination had wavered. And yet she also remembered the moments of triumph, the small victories that had kept her moving forward, the clarity she had felt when she focused on the present moment. Each memory was a reminder of her own strength, a proof of what she could accomplish when she refused to give up. She realized that these experiences would stay with her forever, shaping her perspective, her choices, and her understanding of herself. She began to think about the future with a new sense of confidence. The challenges ahead would not be easy, but she no longer feared them. She understood that life would always have its ups and downs, moments of pain and moments of joy, but she was equipped to navigate them all. She felt prepared to face difficulties with patience, to approach obstacles with determination, and to embrace every experience as an opportunity to grow stronger. She had learned that life's value was not measured by the absence of struggle, but by the courage to continue, the resilience to endure, and the wisdom gained along the way. As she looked back on her journey, she felt a profound sense of pride, not the kind of pride that seeks recognition or applause, but the quiet pride of someone who has faced immense difficulty and emerged stronger, wiser, and more confident. She had discovered a resilience she did not fully know she possessed, a courage that had been buried beneath doubt and fear. She had proven to herself that strength is not about never experiencing pain or hardship, but about choosing to move forward despite it. And with that realization, she felt a sense of fulfillment that was deeply satisfying, a feeling that came from knowing she had truly grown. She also felt a sense of gratitude for herself, for choosing to endure, for refusing to give up, and for trusting her own inner strength. She understood that the journey had not been easy, and that it had required immense effort, patience, and courage. But in the end, the struggle had transformed her, leaving her stronger, more self-aware, and more confident than ever before. She realized that every difficult moment had a purpose, and that embracing those moments, rather than avoiding them, was the key to discovering her true potential. Her thoughts returned once more to the phrase that had guided her through the most challenging moments, "You're stronger than a Mustang." She smiled softly, recognizing how true those words had been. They had not just been encouragement, they had been a reminder of her own inner strength, a reflection of her resilience and determination. She understood now that strength is not something that is given or visible to others. It is something that is discovered, cultivated, and embraced within oneself, and she felt grateful to have learned that lesson in such a powerful, transformative way. As the day turned into evening, she allowed herself to rest fully, letting her body recover while her mind reflected on all she had experienced. She thought about the journey not as an end, but as a beginning, a foundation for all the challenges she would face in the future. She felt confident that whatever obstacles lay ahead, she could meet them with courage, patience, and resilience. She had discovered her own power, learned to trust it, and embraced the lessons that struggle had offered. And in that acceptance she found a sense of peace, fulfillment, and joy that was unlike anything she had known before. Finally, as she prepared to step forward into the next chapter of her life, she felt a quiet sense of triumph. She had endured pain, faced fear, and discovered a depth of strength she had never known existed. She had learned that challenges, no matter how intense, could be met with courage, determination, and belief in oneself. And she had discovered that true resilience is not about avoiding difficulty, but about embracing it, learning from it, and allowing it to reveal the best within us. With that knowledge, she stepped forward with confidence, ready to face whatever life had in store, knowing that she was stronger, wiser, and more capable than ever before.